can't smell it right now, but there's no gasoline smell in my garage anymore. And funny story, on these cars, guys, whenever you do, if you get a the gas tank is back here, right? So if you install one of those little level sender things with the floaty that goes like up and down or whatever to tells you gauge how much fuel you have. Whenever you do that, make sure that thing's really tight whenever you put that collar on, because mine wasn't. And whenever I filled up the tank and let it sit for a little bit, it would seep out until it got down to that level. So that was a mess, and it would that's where my my last little fuel leak was coming from, I guess. So all of my high pressure stuff is appears to be sorted. I've been cruising around town, doing the dang thing. I went and got it aligned. More about that in a second. I got it aligned again, rather. So I think all my fuel system situation is sorted. The gauges, the new gauges, they are on there. I think we're about 4 to 6 weeks out on those. It might be just a month now at this point. This is what I did. Had a little vacation, impromptu vacation. So I finished all this stuff. This rear seat delete on. I gotta do the doors. I gotta get more stuff for the doors. But yeah, it's real strong and pretty lightweight too. I just added to my steel frame down there, and you can kind of see that bar going up. Basically, there's a steel bar going from this point all the way to that point over there, and it's just kind of seated in there, and then the mounting bolts go to this thing. So then the top part uses those 3 bolts to bolt the plywood piece, and I may stick some pictures in of the actual construction of that thing. It's very it's 1/2-inch plywood with glued and nailed, and it's quite sturdy. And I even have like these bits right here. That's aluminum, and it's screwed in on the underside so as to give rigidity for this piece so it doesn't flop around too much. So trying to get that stuff sorted. It's coming along really well. Yeah. So the reason for the alignment was the other day after I got back from cruising around, having some fun with the car, I noticed that this wheel is a little bit, well, from the back, it looked a little off. So I was like, that's strange. And ever since I've built the car, right here, it kept rubbing a little bit. And I was like, that's weird. And I looked on the other side, and it wasn't happening there. So you kind of see it like right here. So I was like, that's weird. So I went around, and I just kind of did this thing. And then I went to the other side and did this. Well, you may notice that they're about the same, right? Right now. Well, fun fact, the other side was actually about 1/2 inch rearward. So at that point, I was like, well, that's strange. So I just started taking measurements, and eventually I got to the point where I got some string, and I went from that wheel to that wheel, and I marked the inside and the outside of each wheel. Actually, I did it on the other side first, and then I brought it to this side, and I kept coming up with about that much difference. So that wheel was that way, like 1/2 inch. It wasn't centered just like the other one. Now, after I've done all the things that I'm going to tell you about, they're within about a 1/16 of an inch front to rear. So the wheelbase is no longer a trapezoid. It's actually a rectangle now. All right, so what did I have to do? Basically there's a bolt right there on the inside, not right there, that's a tire, but like on the inside, if you could just have x-ray vision and look through, there's a bolt in there, and that bolt goes through a hole, right? Well, that hole that it needed to go through was about 1/2 inch, 3/8 of an inch rearward from where it needed to be. Oh, and by the way, the whole rear end is about 1/8 of an inch to the left, to the driver's side. So that's why I have these spacers only on one side. I put longer studs in, 2.5-inch studs, to compensate for the spacers. So that's all fine. See, that's easy to correct. But the other thing, the super annoying part was, I had to use a Dremel with the IRS in the car to Dremel out that hole, make it longer, to slot it out, so that I could use a come along, this guy, to hook up to the transmission mount and draw this sucker forward enough to where it was where it should be. And then at that point, that rear bolt over there was at its maximum. So then I was like, okay, well, what do we got now? So then I took all the measurements and everything was good. So basically that front hole, Ford put it in the wrong place, which didn't really matter whenever this was a straight axle. But whenever you have because there's slop in it, right? Whenever you have this thing, and it's no longer 4x4 ride height and it's an actual rigid piece, you have to be a lot more precise. And Ford sucked at that in the 90s. So I fixed it. Yeah, so since there's slots now on this side, I had to basically make a couple of washers that have little tabs, and they fill in those slots so that this sucker can't move backwards. It shouldn't. So I filled in the rear tab over here and this tab up here. So we should be good to go. I got an alignment, and she drives good. Real happy with it. Its engine appears to be very healthy. I did the first oil change after the dyno, and putting a couple 100 miles on it, just cruising around and really not babying it hardly at all. I've done probably a dozen pulls in this thing, hard launches, and drained out 7 quarts, and I put 7 quarts in, and that's how much it had in it. No gas, no water. The oil just looked good. It looked like a couple 100-mile oil, nothing too crazy. So all of this TIG welding stuff is in service to filling in that spot so that we can both transition the body line to the exhaust and also hide that pinch weld, just to make it look a little bit cleaner. And that is also going to tie to the belly pan pieces that are going to smooth out airflow underneath the car, which is going to have to do with the front splitter that I need to fabricate and get sorted. Initially, basically, I'm just going to belly pan the whole car to smooth out all that airflow. And yeah, hopefully, I don't think I'm going to be going fast enough to make this thing an airplane, but that's going to be exciting. My new little adventure is going to be that sort of thing. And then after I get that stuff sorted out, because those are body mods, then I'll have her repainted again. Because, yeah, well, we've already talked about that. So, that's it. Peace out, Girl Scouts. Take care of one another.